a lot of people, they go into that descent into what I refer to as the underworld. And they just think they're stuck there. They think they've lost everything. They've lost identity. They don't know who they are anymore. They're dying and they don't understand their own experience. And so they despair and it's terror. And a lot of people get stuck there and a lot of people get lost there, which is one of the reasons why they're afraid to go there in the first place. Because a lot of people are afraid to face their deepest, darkest fears because they don't actually know if they're going to be able to come out, or they don't think that they're ever going to be able to come out because they don't understand or they don't yet believe or have faith that actually you are going to come out, because emotions are like seasons. Like you just have to feel your emotions in order for them to pass through your body. And the more you resist feeling them or hold on to them, the more they stick around, which is why people can get into these really sticky states of dense emotions for long periods of time. But it doesn't have to be that way once you learn the cycle. Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celine DaCosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in. Hello, soul family, and welcome back to It's Not What You Think. Today is it's going to be one of those let's get raw, real, vulnerable kinds of episodes. And to be really honest, I'm a little nervous about having this conversation with you. I'm going to be opening up today about why I've decided to take 3 months off of my business and to go on sabbatical. As well as diving deeper into this journey of, I suppose you could call it the dark night of the soul and death and rebirth cycles of our ego. And when we choose to make really big, significant changes in our life, what it actually looks like on the back end, the messy, not as glamorous part of what it actually looks like when you're going through it in real time. It's really easy when we go through a really big change, whether we decide to change our job or need big change in relationship, we move across the country, we quit our job to travel the country, whatever that is. It's really easy and fun, usually, to tell the story on the other side. Once you've won, once you've realized that the sacrifices that you made were worth it, once you can see the fruits of your labor. But it's yet another thing to talk about it and even be with it as it's happening, as you are in the void, as you are in that deep unknown of, hey, I need to make certain changes in my life and big changes, and I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be for the best. I don't know if this is going to go the way that I want it to go. And that's what makes deep change and transformation so unsettling and scary for most human beings on the planet, because we know, we feel a deeper soul calling to step into something greater than ourselves. We can feel it intuitively, but life isn't necessarily responding to that soul calling, right? It's like, and I'll share more of my personal story in a moment. But I'm sure even now you've had this moment in your life where you're like, yeah, gotta make a big change, and this feels scary. Why? Because if I make the change, if I leave this partner, if I leave this job, if I pivot in my business in this way, I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if it's going to work out better than this. And that unknown is what I want to play with today. And what I want to explore and unpack with you is how to actually be in that. How to navigate it with a calm, regulated nervous system, at least as much as is humanly possible. And how to really make the most of it. And I just want to say, as I dive into today's conversation, that I am not at all the master expert on this. I am not sitting in my throne being like, I've done this 1,000 times and I do it well every time and with the utmost grace and perseverance and all the things. And let me show you how to do it. That's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is like, hey, I'm in it, and I'm in it with eyes wide open. I'm doing my best. I have tools, maybe not all the tools, but I have a lot of tools. And here's how I'm figuring my way through based on my personal experience, based on supporting, at this point, hundreds of people through big transitions in their lives. So yeah, let's dive in. First things first, I'm going on a sabbatical. I am taking 3 months off my business completely. And I'll tell you towards the end of the episode what I'm going to be doing in that sabbatical. But for now, just know that it's been a really big decision. It's been a really, really big decision. I have been in business for over 8 years now. And my brand has grown tremendously over the past 8 years. My business is, has been featured on Forbes, TEDx, Business Insider, lots of top podcasts. Like I have the credentials, and that's not what I'm, I don't even want to sit here and be like, let me list off for you all the credentials that I have. But that's all to say that between the credentials, the millions of dollars that have been generated, the thousands of people that have been served, like I've built something. I've built something that matters. I built something that matters to me. I built something that matters to the people whose lives it touched. I built something that has deeply transformed people's lives. And I'm proud of that. And lately, by lately, I mean, for about a year and a half, I've been receiving a calling. The best way I can describe it, whatever you subscribe to, God, source, universe, spirit, know that I use these words interchangeably. But it's like spirit calling me saying, hey, there's something more. Hey, there's something you're not seeing right now that you really need to wake up to. Hey, there's more. Please look at it. And for the past year and a half, I'll be honest, I have not been looking at it, or I have been with a little bit of an eye and then looking away and distracting myself. And now you might be thinking, well, Celine, what is it? What is it? What is this thing that you're being called into? I don't know. That's actually the really freaking terrifying answer. I don't know what it is. I just know it's something. And the reason why I know is because I've had this feeling multiple times in my life. The most, remarkable one was back in 2015 when I was in my corporate job in New York and I was getting that knock on my door for months that I was also ignoring, months of being like, hey, there's something more. Hey, there's something more. And then I felt like, I was not meant to be in a corporate job in America, working in advertising. I knew I wasn't meant to be living in New York City. I knew I was not meant to be living this hamster wheel life that I was on, where I was working 10-hour days and then like having no personal time for myself and just being in the constant cycle, looping from go to the gym, work for 10 hours, go meet a friend for a cocktail, go to sleep, do it again, over and over and over again for years. And yeah, I knew there was something bigger than me, but I guess I had to be pushed into it by the universe, where it forced my hand. And I talk about this actually in the first couple episodes of this podcast, where I share my story of how within months of there was a breaking point where my grandfather died. I went on a volunteer trip in one of the poorest countries on the planet in Cambodia, which broke my heart. And then had a boyfriend break up with me on my birthday, and my rent went up, and like I didn't get a promotion. Just all this stuff started happening in my life, just started to naturally fall apart on its own because I was not listening and I wasn't answering the call. And so the universe, sort of forced my hand to need to make a change. And that's when I decided 9 months later, after a lot, like big dark night of the soul and a lot of changes and a lot of just overcoming myself, I went on a plane. I got on a plane, a one-way ticket out of New York to Europe to do, a social experiment where I couch surfed. I circumnavigated the world by couch surfing without using the website, like literally staying in the homes of strangers, friends I met on the road, and writing stories about it. And that huge leap of faith, which was very painful, very uncomfortable, and very much, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Like, Jesus, take the wheel kind of situation. That led me to starting what is my now business. That led me to becoming a digital nomad, traveling the world, creating a freedom-based lifestyle, and having so many dreams come true. And so looking back on that decision, that big event in my life, me ignoring the calling, me answering the calling a little bit, like after I stumbled a little bit, and then going off on this big adventure into the unknown, coming off on the other side, like completely better for it, was my first, I would say, big initiation into what in the Andes, in shamanic tradition, there's this concept called the medicine wheel, which I love to share with you. And it's really a big initiation on what it actually takes to go on your own hero's journey and what it actually takes to grow, to quantum leap. It's a very popular word, quantum leaping. I see it all over Instagram these days. I see it being very overused. But what does that word really mean? What were these words, this phrase, to quantum leap? What does it mean to take a leap across the quantum from one timeline to the other? A leap that is so vast and so unlike the reality that you're currently living that it's quantum. It literally had to happen by you coming into the quantum, like connecting to all that is, and shifting your timeline, the timeline of your current life and the direction that your life is going so drastically that you have made a leap in the quantum field. So what does that mean? Now, I've got loads of things I wanna share with you, and what I want to do is break this, give you a little bit of a structure in today's conversation, so that you can follow along and really feel into what I'm saying without being like, is she gonna keep talking? Is she gonna talk about the medicine wheel? Is she gonna keep going about these little hints she's dropping, these breadcrumbs? I'm gonna cover it all, but here's what I want to share with you. The first thing I want to share with you is why I'm taking this sabbatical. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to dive into is the practical part of making this decision, what practically inspired this in 3D physical material world. And then what I want to do is to break down the spiritual mechanics of what is happening inside, because as you're hopefully seeing now, this episode isn't just about Celine's sabbatical and why Celine's going on sabbatical and what's going on in Celine's life and Celine's business. But as I do with anything, I feel that, part of my soul mission is I go through things and I have the tools and I have the words to describe these profound experiences that I go through that a lot of people also go through, like humanity is going through, you're probably going through. And one of my gifts is storytelling and communication. And so what I love to do is to articulate what is currently happening in my experience through the lens of the patterns that I have seen in my clients, in my students, in my peers, in just, me observing humanity in general, and to really connect it to, there's a bigger message here around what it really takes to navigate big life transitions, to navigate grief, to navigate fear, and to come back into your deeper soul wisdom. So that's the conversation I want to have with you today. And the reason why it's raw and vulnerable is because for me to be able to have this conversation, at least to have it to the level of authenticity and depth that I want to have it to, I'm going to need to out myself. I'm going to need to share parts of my experience that feel uncomfortable. And honestly, I have, up until recently, held quite a bit of shame around. Maybe as I unravel this conversation, there will be places and spaces where I still feel shame, where I still feel sad, where I'm still processing grief. And my commitment is I'm going to be honest about that. And my request for you is to listen to this with your body, listen to these words with an open heart, because my intention is that whatever wants to move through me today can move from my heart to your heart, and it can impact you and support you in your journey somehow. And or support you in supporting other people that you know that are going through this journey. Because at the time of this recording, we're now in October 2024. What I can tell you with certainty is that there's a lot of people in my world that I know that have had a really challenging year. They've been really tested this year. And without getting too detailed into the planetary movements of everything that was happening with like the crazy eclipse season back in April, and just everything what's happening, like us moving into the age of Aquarius, like there's just so many astrological pieces here of why we are being affected as a collective. But, without getting into the nitty gritty of that today, as I don't think this matters for what I want to share. If you're listening to this and you have recently navigated a really big challenge, whether in your personal or professional life, or someone who has, this will be really, really good for you. Okay, so before I dive into the deep, juicy stuff, I want to share a disclaimer. I want to share that I recognize that I am very, very privileged to be in a position where I can say, I'm going to take 3 months off and unplug from the world and unplug from my business. I'm really present with just the blessing that this is, and that most people on the planet can't just do that. So I share this with you because, number one, I'm aware of it and know that I'm aware of it. And number two, as I share what I'm about to share, I'm aware of this. And please, if there's a part of you that is like, oh yeah, but she can take 3 months off, I can't do that, so I can't apply any of the things that she's about to share. I want to address that limiting belief right off the bat. And invite you to open your mind to know that even if you don't have the ability to just take time off, even if you're going through some of the things I'm sharing with today and you can't just unplug, keep an open mind, because there's a lot of principles and insights that I'm sharing here that are going to, I really feel very strongly confident, are going to support you in your process, whatever that looks like for you. And so, I made really smart, as I was building my business, I made really smart investment decisions. And I spoke about, even in this podcast, I have an episode around investing in your financial mindset. I have a course called Love Money Again, where I talk about money mindset and energetics. I have spoken about places and spaces about money, wealth, rewiring my mindset from scarcity to abundance. And even though I've still got work to do around that, I have to admit that I have made some really smart decisions. And one of the biggest ones has been to create income sources that are external to my business, which now allow me to be able to take time off of my business without needing to be concerned about my financial resources. So just want to put that out there as I share that, I have the ability to do this. I'm really grateful for it. I recognize my privilege, And I hope that does not deter you from really receiving what I'm going to share today. Okay, so the first thing that I love to do is to actually read you, because I want to tell you why I'm deciding to go on sabbatical. But I honestly, I woke up the other day and I just downloaded this piece of writing that I'm also going to be posting on Instagram, and it's pretty accurate. I don't think I can rephrase it in any way that's going to sound better than what this is. So I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to unpack that. So here's the message. I've decided to go on sabbatical. God's source universe has been speaking to me for almost 2 years now, asking me to change the way I'm walking on this earth walk. Many times, I've been asked to slow down, to unplug from the mainstream matrix, to follow my intuition deeper, and to surrender to soul to lead me down my highest timeline. I did what I could, but due to my hardwired conditioning of being an overachiever and my deep unconscious fears of failure and losing all that I've built, I've continued to push my way through, slowly progressing in my path, but not bridging the gap of what my heart desired. This year has sent too many signs my way, signs that I can no longer ignore, such as what I used to work is no longer working. I'm doing more for less results and less satisfaction. I have outgrown my business model. The market is changing, and I have changed with it. I can feel my sacred mission pulling me, but I can't clearly hear what's being asked of me through all the noise. Similar to how I took 1 year and 9 months of abstinence from men and sex a couple years ago to excavate and remember who I am as a woman when I claim my own energy and stand in my own sovereignty. I'm feeling the call to take a break from business, to remember who I am as a human without having to constantly do the work. I feel a longing, a yearning to get close to the earth, to dissolve myself into nothingness and become a nobody just for a little while. To turn off all the noise, all of the voices on and off the internet telling me what to do and who to be. The truth is, I've lost touch with my own voice, and what I know to be true is that my authentic soul expression is the most precious compass that I have while navigating this earth walk. Soul is knocking on my door hard, and this time I'm choosing to answer. As an overachiever and someone who self-identifies as being responsible and not letting people down, it's been so hard to let everything go, not to mention a financially terrifying decision. But I know I must walk down this path of the unknown to become who I am here to be. I declare this to be the moment when I learn to surrender to soul, connect with my inner knowing, listen deeply to my body and her wisdom, and allow greater intelligence to work through me. I don't know what will become of me on the other side. What I do know is that I'm choosing the path of heart and allowing soul to lead me there. See you on the other side. So that's the short version of why I'm choosing to go on sabbatical. And now, before I step into the spiritual, metaphysical component of it, I just want to address the practical part, which is that in the past year and a half, my business has actually been growing and growing and growing. And I noticed that with that growth came a lot of pressure, came a lot of responsibility that I was not prepared for. And also a lot of responsibility that I didn't consciously choose, but I allowed unconsciously to happen because of my own patterns that I was not aware of. And the very short version, as I mentioned in the post, is that there's been a lot of changes in my industry. And a lot of changes, with AI, with just social media and user behavior and just all these little nitty-gritty things, which don't per se affect the business. But I think it's one of those things, like what it reminds me of is I heard the story once that if you are on an airplane and you're the pilot of an airplane and you put the navigation and you're like 1% off, just 1% off with your navigation, you could end up like 400,000 miles away from the final destination. So even a 1% shift in direction can take you somewhere completely different. And what I felt is that I've just been 1% out of alignment here and there and here and there. And compounded over time, it just took me somewhere that I wasn't expecting and I was not consciously choosing, and didn't bring me the fulfillment and joy that I had previously. And so what that means is that I started doing a lot of things in my business, which I'm not going to get into the mechanics and intricacies of that because honestly, I don't think it matters. But I started doing things like the way I was setting up funnels, or the people whose advice I was following in terms of how to set up the back end of my business, or how to structure my courses, or how much to charge for my courses. I just started to listen too much to experts that knew what they were doing, sure, but weren't me, and not matching that listening to external guidance with listening to my internal wisdom. There was a mismatch, as in there was an excess of listening to external guidance rather than being in that internal wisdom. There was just a gap, right? And in that gap, I made a lot of decisions that weren't in my highest alignment. And I just found myself, a year plus down the line, being in a position where I was working harder than before to earn less. And sure, you could say, I'm still earning more than 99.9999% of the population. But the pressure around it started to shift. I started to just find that not only was I working more and it wasn't generating the same results as before, but I was losing my passion. And I love what I do. It is so like what I do still feels for the past 8 years. And this is why I teach so much about creating a business from soul and soul guidance, is because I still feel in my soul that I am doing what I love to do. But how I've been doing it is the 1% thing that got knocked out of balance. And so I started to have these realizations of like, interesting, look at, I'm my overhead is getting higher. I'm hiring more people than ever before. We're doing more output, more work to reach more people. The profit margin is going down. How does that make sense? And these changes, these things that the industry is pushing, these trends that are popular in my industry, when I check in with myself, I don't actually feel good about doing these things. I don't feel good about doing a 5-day challenge for free and asking for zero energy exchange so that people can understand my value. I don't feel good about, needing to be on Instagram every single day, creating all these reels and all these videos and pumping out content. And in addition to being a business owner, in addition to being a CEO, in addition to being a leader for my team, also needing to be a full-time content creator and serve my clients and coach and create like high quality products. It's like, and I got a little lost. I got a little lost in the tunnel of consensual reality, in the tunnel of here's what everybody's doing and here's what's working. So should I innovate and adapt to this, even though innovating is not adapting? It's doing something different. Well, all that being said, I got a little lost in the sauce, and it started to affect my health, because I am a highly sensitive, empathic being. In case you haven't gotten this already, I'm really freaking tapped in, extremely psychic, extremely sensitive, extremely intuitive. And so when I'm doing things that don't feel good to me, like internally, when I'm not in my soul's highest alignment, my body starts to respond. And this is when I will start to get breakouts. This is when I'll, start to feel really tired and get fatigue. And my health started to get affected. And with it, my clarity, my mental clarity started to get affected. And, I share this I have a post where I recently shared that this summer, a few months ago, I was like, what is health? Like, what is going on? And I got a bunch of blood tests and stool tests and all the things. And it turned out that I found out I had Lyme's disease and 2 other tick-borne diseases in my blood. And the crazy thing is that it's been in my system. My doctor believes it's been in my system since I was like a kid. So it's not something that new. It's something that has been in my nervous system for decades. And now that I've been able to pinpoint it, because I started to ask the right questions and started to, be like, what's going on with my health? Let's dig deeper. I realized that, the theory that my doctor has is that the past year and it's like it got turned on. It just got activated because your immune system was like, girl, pay attention. I'm talking to you. And my immune system's like, knock, knock. Who's there? Now you're going to take care of me, whether you like it or not, as it happens, and I'm lucky because, as you can see, even I'm a very vital human being. I've got a lot of fire. I've got a lot of energy. And even with these diagnoses, which I'm, fully on, I'm on a protocol. So please don't worry about me. I've got it all under control. Like I'm on the track back to health now. But even me, like being so vibrant and feeling like, oh, I feel a little bit of brain fog and fatigue. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've spoken to who went way further down the line, who are now dealing with like chronic disease, like chronic illness, chronic health issues, because they push their body so freaking hard beyond what their body had their capacity to do because of business, because of work, because they overworked themselves and they compromised their health for income, for to be more visible, to be more seen, like the usual benefits and culprits, impact, influence, income, the things that we want. We pay to. I have a mentor of mine who says we pay to get laid, we pay to get rich, and we pay to live forever. And in the quest to be impactful and influential and have lots of money, a lot of people compromise their health because they think they're invincible. It's common, especially in your younger years. You think you're invincible. You think you're going to live forever. You think everything's good because your body is working in perfect order, until you realize that your body is a vessel that needs to be taken care of your whole life. And your body is the vessel that holds your soul and that allows us to move through material reality. And so if we don't take care of that, everything else starts to fall apart, to be honest. So it was a really beautiful lesson to really notice that the practical mechanics of this past, year and a half or so was like, oh, okay, interesting. I'm 1% off here. I don't really love doing this, but I guess I'll do it because it's what the people want, right? Like I'm not really a fan of framing it this way, but I guess I need to make my courses shorter because people have short attention spans, right? Rather than trusting that people who can handle long form, aka you who's listening to this podcast all the way through the end, can handle the ways that I create content. And so all these ways where I would override my own internal compass and go for what I thought people wanted, or what seems to be working better in the industry, or what I generally, like from a heart-led space, I believed would be the best things for my business. But again, it's not like, and I know if you have a business and you've made mistakes, or you've done things in your business, and you're like, oh yeah, I would have done that better. Hopefully, you can agree with me that it's not like you're out there being like, wahaha, how can I self-sabotage myself today? Like, how can I take the wrong turn? How can I make my partner mad? How can I screw something up in my business? Like, how can I make myself even more unhealthy today? Like, we're thinking like that. But the reason why we get those results is because of unconscious patterning and conditioning, belief systems, thought patterns of behavior that we're carrying from the past, and we are unconsciously copying and pasting them into the present, which will thereby create a future that's similar to the past. That's how we keep repeating in the same cycles. And so when we want to take a quantum leap, when we want to change our future to be in higher alignment with what we desire in our soul, we've also got to change the way we think, we've got to change the way we feel, and we've got to change the way we act. And so decisions that, even in this example I made, it wasn't like I was out there being like, how can I be online today? It happened because I needed to make these decisions for me to be in a position where I could course correct, so that I could learn the lesson, so I can do better. When you know better, you do better. You know what I mean? So on a practical note, I've just had, I just felt tired. I felt physically tired because of my own stuff, like my own physical things that I've needed to heal from. So I've just felt fatigued, and I remember just shaming myself in the beginning of this year. I was really shaming myself because I'm like, oh my God, I used to be able to do all these things. I used to spin 8 plates and not blink an eye. And now I feel like I can only spin 3 plates and it's hard. What's up with that? Well, the short answer is health. It's physical burnout and emotional burnout to an extent. And so I wasn't able to do the things that I used to be able to do. And I had to work through that. I had to go through my own internal process of forgiving myself, of detangling my sense of worth from productivity, and detangling my sense of worth from also financial productivity, because I noticed that my income started to dip. And again, I say this from a place of I'm really blessed in the sense that it dipped, but like still I have, a full-time team on board and I'm still able to cover all my expenses. So it didn't dip to the point of causing destitution or desperation in that way. But I do believe, as an entrepreneur, when you're seeing like upward trend, and then it starts to go down, you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why isn't this steadily climbing up? And it's like one of the biggest entrepreneurial lessons of all time is to get used to, business income, like being kind of like the stock market, and it goes up. And then ideally, the ideal scenario is that over the years, over time, it keeps going up and up and up. It climbs upwards. But if you zoom in and you look at the month by month, you're going to see up, down, up and around. Oh my God, all the way down. Oh, all the way up. And then net, it all works out. But I noticed myself getting really caught up in feeling scared and feeling insecure and feeling like I don't have the energy to produce the way that I needed to produce. And because I can't produce the way I produce, I can't make the money I used to make. And because I can't make the money I used to make, I'm useless. What's wrong with me? Like something's wrong with me. And I went down that little spiral. I'm not going to lie. The difference is that when you have the tools and you're really, my work is around storytelling and subconscious reprogramming, changing the story, like rewriting the story from the inside out. It's literally the air I breathe. So I know better. I let myself go there and then, feel the grief, feel the sadness, feel the emotions. And then, okay, let's rewrite the story because this is not serving me and it's not serving my future. And so I'm already on the other side of that. And what I can share with you is that it has been a really, really big lesson on how do I say it? The spiral of life. And again, this is one of the big shamanic teachings that I keep coming back to over and over again, which is that we're not in a circle where we just kind of we are in a circle when we are looping in our past. That is when we're going around in a circle where we are doing the same things, we're thinking the same things, we're showing up the same, and therefore we're getting the same results because we're making the same choices. And because we're making the same choices, we are getting the same results, which then result in the same experiences, which result in the same emotions, which then trigger the same thoughts, right? And that's how we are in a circle. But when we start looking at our path as an evolution, where we get to quantum leap, it more so becomes a spiral where we do a lap around. And ideally, when we complete the circle, we learn the lesson. We actually learn the lesson that we're here to learn. And then because we learn the lesson, we spiral up into another circle until we learn that lesson. And I'll give you an example of that. So I'll give you a really silly, not business example. Relationships. What I can say with you is I've been, something I've been very, very open about is the ways that I've been reprogramming my love story and my relationship to love and calling in divine union and partnership. And in the past few years, I've gone through a few rounds of relationships. And, round one, maybe let's say a few years ago, round one is like, oh my God, I totally betrayed myself. I was not speaking up for what I needed. I was playing small, right? So I finish round one and it's like, oof, sucker punched. That one hurt. And then it's about like the healing process is about, okay, how can I better speak up for myself? How can I not compromise? How can I show up stronger next time around? And then, life puts you through the tests and tribulations that will have, for example, in my case, men testing me, testing like whether I will compromise myself again or not, or whether I will abandon myself again or not. And then sometimes I fall on my face and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, yay, I'm really proud of me. And when I'm proud of me and I do the right thing, I anchor that in. I anchor that into my nervous system. Good job. I did it. Let's do more of this. It works well. And then when I fall on my face again, which turns into like heartbreak or anxiety, or I'm so sad or I'm so upset, then it's like, ooh, oh, that didn't work out so well. So what do I need to change and how do I need to shift for me to not attract someone like this in the future? And every time I call in a new relating experience with a man, it is palpable that it is better and better and better and better and better, to the point where if I look at my dating patterns today and I compare it to the caliber of man that I used to date and attract 3 years ago, and also who I show up, how I show up in my power, in my sovereignty, it's night and day. It's completely two different species. But if I was not learning the lessons, if I was not completing the circle and then basically learning the lessons so I could upgrade myself into the next level of that spiral, then, and I've seen this happen, by the way, I've seen this happen with in love, in business, where in health, where 10 years later, do you know somebody, it's like she's dating the same version of the same guy and she's having the same problems and the same issues 10 years later. Why? Because the lesson wasn't learned. Same thing applies to money. When people are stuck in that income plateau and they just keep making the same income and they keep trying to make more, but 10 years later, here they are doing the same thing. It's because they have not broken out of old patterning and conditioning that they need to in order to advance to the next, layer of consciousness that is needed to go into that upward spiral that essentially brings us closer and closer and closer and closer to God, source, universe, right? It brings us closer and closer to a wholeness. The more we spiral up, the more we spiral into our totality, our sense of totality and wholeness. And so it's the same thing here with what I realized is that, there's some circles that needed to be closed. And for me, part of that was working through the shame. It has been untangling my self-worth from my net worth, which I've done years and years. I've done this work. And it's the next layer, right? Because for me, for example, this example of one of the lessons I've needed to learn is the untangling of self-worth from net worth. I've needed to learn that lesson 8 years ago, but 8 years ago, it was a different circumstance. It was like, I just want to go from, like, I want to break out of making $2,000 a month. How do I step into high income levels, 5-figure months? How do I do that? That was me untangling my self-worth and from my net worth. How do I do that? By being in service. And so when I broke through the lesson back then in 2017, I went from a 2K month to a 10K month, aka a quantum leap. And since then, I hadn't dipped below a 5-figure month, right? And so that is what I mean by that, is that the lesson, the lesson is similar. But if we spiral upwards and upwards and upwards and upwards, and we go to 8 years later, the lesson is, wow, oh my God, I have made all this money in my business. I have all these investments. I have, thousands of people I've served. And my identity is tied to that. I feel like I'm worthy because I did that. So you see, it's still like an untangling of self-worth from net worth, but how it looks like is an evolution. It's completely different. It's not about more like, how do I survive? How do I get by and travel the world and do the things I want to do? To like, how do I recognize, appreciate myself for everything I've accomplished, stand in my power, and know that this is not all that I am. My business is not all who I am. So I've needed to learn variations of this lesson as the years go by. It shows up in different ways. It shows up in how much income I'm generating. It will show up in how much of that is a profit margin. It will show up on that in how students, clients respond to my work, or how I'm showing up on social media, and whether I'm feeling like my presence is relevant anymore or it's not relevant anymore. There's all these places and nooks and crannies where we get insecure, where we get fearful. But what's really important is to recognize them, acknowledge them, and move through them and break through, learn the lessons so that we can evolve. And so this whole thing around the practicalities of practically, I realized that, hey, the way my business model right now, as it is, I have outgrown. I have grown beyond that. It doesn't suit me. So I'm going to need to make some changes. And in order for me to make the changes that I need to make, I need headspace, and I need to feel healthy and strong within myself. I need some space for me to think about practically what is the best way that I want to move my business moving forward. So I have had to take a step back. I've needed to reduce my overhead. I've needed to cut down on team hours. I've needed to let go of some team members. I've needed to restructure the back end of my business to create more space for myself to think about where is it that I want to take my creation in the future. Because the way it's been now is quote unquote working according to the consensual tunnel of reality. I'm sure many, many people would look at my business model, would look at what I have and be like, oh my God, you're sitting on gold and this is amazing. I wish I could have that. And sure, but it doesn't work for me, for my system, the way I am and my current state of consciousness, evolution, and desire at the moment. And so one of the reasons I'm taking, the practical reason I'm taking the sabbatical is because I need time and I need space and I need a break from all the noise and everyone's voices in my ear so I can think. I can think and I can feel, how is it that I want to structure this business moving forward? Do I want to continue with online courses? Do I want to go deeper into the consulting route? Do I want to double down on, my high ticket private coaching? Or do I want to start something more accessible like a membership? I don't know. Or is it none of the above? I don't know. Hello, soul family. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and feeling all the good vibes. Before we dive back in, I want to take a moment to share a special gift with you, something that is near and dear to my heart that can truly help elevate how you start and flow throughout your day. If you've been craving a deeper alignment with yourself, with your soul, your body, your mind, your energy, then I invite you to experience my Soul Alignment Meditation, a free daily practice designed to help you come back home to yourself, to your power, and to your center. In this brief but powerful meditation, you'll learn how to sync your physical, emotional, mental, and energy bodies, offering yourself the gift of soul-deep relaxation and clarity. Whether you're feeling a little off-center or simply want to lead your day from a place of grounded alignment, this practice is for you. So, if you're ready to move through your day with more ease, purpose, and connection to your truth, you can access the Soul Alignment Meditation by going to the show notes or visiting CelineDaCosta.com. It's completely free and designed for anyone who's ready to lead their life from the heart and soul. I can't wait for you to experience this. Now, let's get back into today's episode. So I'm giving myself the gift of taking time and space to figure out what feels good for me in my heart and in my body. So, that feels so good to say that. It feels so good to say that. Because I think, there's a part of me that definitely has been, it's really easy for me to share with you, I'm taking a sabbatical, woohoo, like 3 months off, woo. Like now I'm excited about it. But you should have seen me when the idea first came to me. When that voice first dropped into my head, when my inner wisdom was like, you need to do this, I was like, oh no. No. What about my clients? What about my team? What about like social media? I mean, what about my audience? Like, what about everything I felt? I'm just going to abandon everything. I had so many limiting beliefs come up, so many fears. Am I shooting myself on the foot? Am I self-sabotaging myself? Is this the ultimate act of self-sabotage? The mind fuckery. And when I just drop deeper and deeper into myself, into my inner wisdom, aligning with my soul, it's like, nope, this is the thing I got to do. The same way I knew in my gut and my heart when I had this idea drop in, what if I just leave this corporate job in New York City altogether? What if I just quit my job and go travel the world and just do an experiment on faith and human connection and see if I can just jump into the abyss? And if I take a leap of faith, will the universe and people catch me? What if? That was back in 2015. And I was like, oh, you crazy girl. No way. Don't do that. That's crazy. Mental fuckery. List 1, list 2. Use all the 1001 reasons why this is not safe. Same thing happened when I decided to, as I mentioned earlier, I took a year and 9 months off of dating because I needed to reset my nervous system. I needed to do some really deep healing around relational trauma and around my past, so I could start to attract a different caliber of men into my life. And when I decided, I was like, girl, what do you mean you're going to take time off? An indefinite amount of time? What? You love sex. You're a sexual being. You want to date? And then you're going to be irrelevant and you're not going to be attractive and like 1,001 things of what you need to do and all the fears that I need to list off so you don't do this because it's not safe. And then I did it. And it was the best thing I've ever done for my womanhood, for my power, for me to like drop into my body and feel and remember who I am as a woman when I don't have entanglements, which therefore allowed me to make better decisions in who I chose to relate with. And the beautiful men that have since walked into my life. So that feeling is the same, except I, at the point of this recording, can't tell you why it worked out good for me. I don't have that information yet. I can't sit here and tell you, well, and then I realized that this was the business model that I wanted to do. And then I realized that this is the direction I wanted to go in. And then I realized like this and this and this and that. And it turned out the best. Look at all my achievements. I don't have that for you yet. I'm sure I will. Like in a year from now, I'm sure I'll do another podcast and make a joke about this. But right now, it's just me. It's just me in this tunnel of the unknown, in this abyss, which I've fondly come to refer to as the womb of the Great Mother. And I'm sitting in it, sharing this with you with eyes wide open. So the last thing I want to, walk you through is what I promised earlier, which is I want to break down the spiritual mechanics of what is happening inside. I've talked to you about my practical reason why I'm on a sabbatical and why I've made this really big decision to take time off for a few months. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense. So I want to drop into the reason why my spirit is craving this. So I shared earlier on today in this episode that there's a really beautiful metaphor that is shared in shamanic traditions in the Andes. And this is the, or maybe the metaphor is not the right word. It's like a concept of the medicine wheel. The medicine wheel is the circle of life, right? What I was saying before, like how can you, it's like a guidebook or a guideline, a guide. It is a guide to navigate different layers of consciousness as you basically go through the hero's journey. And for those of you who are not familiar with the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, who has written incredible literature around this, like the hero's journey is basically the most classic. It is like all Hollywood movies have it, all great, like all of the great books of the world. It is the most commonly used way of explaining our human existence and like the cycle of what it means to be a human. And so the very high level version of the hero's journey, it's about, you've probably seen a movie or read a book where you have a hero, a person who, like Odysseus or Luke Skywalker, who is this like naive and young and like is like, oh, I'm just going bopping around life, kind of like not a really satisfying life, not super happy, like things are going, but they're not the best. And then they get a calling. They got a calling to step into something greater. They get a calling, like Luke Skywalker, getting a calling to be a Jedi. And the first thing the hero does is like, no, thank you. I'm not into this. This sounds really scary. It's really unfamiliar. I'm really comfortable in my little box here. But of course, we can't do that for long enough because at one point we are going to, we're going to get irritated because we're #humans, right? So we get the call from spirit. And then the next step of the hero's journey is the refusal of that call, where we just we don't dare to answer the calling. And then the next thing that happens after that, when we're refusing to answer the calling, is auspicious synchronicities, right? Where similar to what happened to me when I was in New York City, where all of a sudden my grandfather dies. And then I'm on this trip, like while I'm on this trip to Cambodia and I'm already being heartbroken. And then my grandfather dies on top of that. And then I come back and I get broken up with. And then 2 weeks later, it's like promotion doesn't come through. And then 2 weeks later, the rent goes up. And it's like, this is the moment where the universe is like, hey, if you're going to refuse to listen to what I'm saying, here's a bunch of coincidences that aren't actually coincidences to help you wake up to what's happening. Can you see it? Hello, wake up. Right? And that puts us in this, for some people, that's what triggers that dark night of the soul, where you just go into this really deep loss of identity and ego death. And oh my gosh, I don't know who I am anymore. Is this the life that I even wanted in the first place? And this is where a lot of people spiral into despair and grief, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And unfortunately, because a lot of people don't have the tools to navigate through, the dark night of the soul. What is it? It's that dark tunnel. Because they don't have the tools, because they don't understand that they're actually going through a cycle. The same way that if you're living in a country that has 4 seasons and it's winter, you could fall into a deep depression and despair if you didn't know that spring was coming. Like, that in 3 months, approximately 3 months, it's going to get a little warmer. There's going to be some flowers. But if winter came and you just didn't know, and you didn't know how it was going to last, that could be really hard to deal with. And so that's what happens with a lot of people. They go into that descent into, what I refer to as the underworld. And they just think they're stuck there. They think they've lost everything. They've lost identity. They don't know who they are anymore. They're dying and they don't understand their own experience. And so they despair, and it's terror. And a lot of people get stuck there, and a lot of people get lost there, which is one of the reasons why they're afraid to go there in the first place. Because a lot of people are afraid to face their deepest, darkest fears because they don't actually know if they're going to be able to come out, or they don't think that they're ever going to be able to come out because they don't understand, or they don't yet believe or have faith that actually you are going to come out. Because emotions are like seasons. Like, you just have to feel your emotions in order for them to pass through your body. And the more you resist feeling them or hold on to them, the more they stick around, which is why people can get into these really sticky states of dense emotions for long periods of time. But it doesn't have to be that way once you learn the cycle. And so once you go through the synchronicities, you are coming into the threshold of like, oh, wow, you got to cross the veil. Like, you have to go from past life to new life. You need to cross through. And this is when we enter the heart of the womb. This is when we enter that zone of the underworld, the unknown, the like, I'm stripping myself of everything that I ever knew. I'm just in the unknown. I'm in the void. A lot of people, they don't feel comfortable here for rightfully so. Like, I get it, right? But actually, the biggest lesson that I've learned, having gone through these cycles quite a few times and getting better and better at leading myself through them with eyes wide open, is that, we must step into the void in order for us to incubate who we're becoming. Because we cannot incubate the new if we haven't surrendered the old. And so there's a silence that comes after accepting, I don't know what now, my life has crumbled. People just kind of keep looping in, oh my God, and I can't heal from this breakup, or oh my God, I can't believe I got fired, I got laid off from my job, I can't believe my business is not doing well, and my health is not doing well, and they loop and they loop and they loop. But there's silence that comes beyond, okay, I don't know what, I accept this, I surrender. I let go. And you stop struggling against the current. You stop kicking and screaming inside of the womb, and then you just let yourself drop into a void. And just... So life asks us to surrender to all of that which we run away from. And there's a point, if we want to rebirth ourselves through significant transformation and that quantum leap, where we have to let go. Because the ego doesn't want us to experience the pain. It pushes it away, what's uncomfortable. But we have to surrender to our soul. Because your soul is what knows what's actually happening in the bigger scheme of things. In the bigger picture, which you can't see as little you, in that contractive state, there's something bigger that's actually being asked of us. But we can't see it until we let go. So this is the phase where we want to see, like, dare we look at the dark places in our life, at our relationships? Can we be with the guilt? Can we be with the shame? Can we allow it to move through us so that life can move through us again, so that we can reconnect to the life pulse? But we've got to die and just be silent and let go and surrender. In my case, for example, it's like getting the call from spirit of being like, oh, there's something else. That was a year and a half ago. There's something there for you. Something there for you. And then there's like, but everything's comfortable. I'm making really good money. I'm getting really good clients. Like everything's good. Everything's good. It's comfortable. Change. Right? And it's like, yeah, but synchronicity. Oh, this thing doesn't work. Oh, that thing doesn't work. Oh, that thing that you thought was going to work, that wasn't work. And it's like synchronicity. And I'm like, oh my God. At this point, I know enough. I'm really lucky because if this had happened 5 years ago, I wouldn't have seen it because I hadn't learned the lessons. But now I'm like, oh shit, there's all these synchronicities. Listen up, girl. I'm about to cross the threshold. This girl's about to go through some ego deaths over here, and then dropping into the heart of the room, which is where I'm at, to be honest, right now. And after that comes, when you drop in and you surrender, you let go, that's when the tests and the tribulations come. So in this archetypal journey of the hero's journey, for us to discover ourselves on deeper levels and to discover our gifts, which it can be challenging. Think about it like you have the caterpillar, it's hanging on this tree and it's completely melted inside of its cocoon without any idea of the beauty and the splendor of its own destiny. And we know that it's gonna die and it's gonna come out this beautiful butterfly. But even before it comes out and it's flying into the world as a beautiful butterfly, did you know that if there's any interruption in the cocoon, if there's any interruption as it's coming out, like in the process of coming out with its wing, the whole thing goes kaput. It will not survive. It needs silence in order to break out of its shell and spread its wings. It literally needs silence. And if there's a storm comes by, if there's like strong gust of wind, if something happens, that butterfly is never going to come to life. And so when we're rebirthing ourselves, we're letting go and rebirthing ourselves, it's really important to recognize that it's new. It's like new skin. It's really raw. It's not like you come out, I think a lot of people have this fantasy of, well, I'm rebirthing myself and the moment I let go and then I'm going to come out and everything's going to go well. Everything's going to go amazing. Like I'm going to go on this trip and the minute I go out into this trip, then I'm going to get a job offer and it's going to pay me exactly the money that I want to pay. And I'm going to have everything I ever wanted and more, like within the day after that I decided to make the really hard decision. Go me. It's not like that. You're going to need to face new challenges, right? Because think about it. If you're moving into a new country, you're going to need to learn maybe how to speak the language. You're going to need to learn how to adapt yourself to a new environment, create a new community. You're entering a new relationship. Yeah, it might feel really good and there's a great honeymoon period, but you're going to need to learn how to know this person. There might be stuff coming up from the past that's now interfering with the new relationship. You're going to need to work through some challenges maybe. And with the business, for my case, I'm changing the business model. Okay, great. So I get rid of the old business model, but now what about the new one? It's not tried and tested like the old one. I can't, I'm going to need to maybe build new systems for it. I'm going to need to tweak and adjust new things. Maybe I might need to take a temporary hit in income generation so I can make more in the future down the line. So, there's going to be challenges that come even after we rebirth, like in that rebirth process of stepping into our new timeline, coming deeper into alignment with who we're here to be. We're going to walk into difficulties. And what's really important is to use our own inner wisdom as the torch in that darkness that will bring clarity to everything that we do. So, and this is the process as well, I'm remembering, is you don't look for answers desperately outside. Rather, it's about reconnecting to the inner light of your being so much that it brings clarity to your eyes, to your heart, to your mind, and to your being. And when you do that, you step into expansion, right? Before expansion, there's contraction, cycle of life. And when you let go of everything of the past and you resurface with the knowing that you need to do things in a new way now, that's what replugs you into life force. That's what replugs you into God, universe, and allows you to see life in a new way. It's what allows us to really, similar as going from winter to spring, to be like, oh, wow, there's a new opportunity here. And now that I feel really guided by my inner compass, I'm going to pursue this opportunity. This is where you say, oh my gosh, I had an idea. I never thought about this, but this is the next program I'm going to create. Or, oh, I just realized that I'm really digging this woman or this guy that I've been seeing for a while. Like I want to take things further with this person. I was feeling really scared before, but I want to step in with both feet now. And this is where you start to have space for innovation, and you start to remember on a soul level what your gifts are and what you're here to do and why you want to do them. And this is where we really, when we can work through our fears and we can doula ourselves through the death and rebirth process and come out on the other side and face the challenges and tribulations, this is where we start to build a renewed sense of confidence and clarity with what it is that we truly want, and clarity on what the next steps of the direction is, right? And where you can go next, that feels really good and really in alignment for you. And from that space, that's where you emerge into even bigger, because when we talk about, oh my God, I want to be in service and I want to impact a lot of people, you first need to anchor into your gifts yourself and have the ideas and have the innovation and connect with who you truly are, what you're here to give, and why you want to give it to it. And then the next natural step in the cycle is that you're going to want to give it. And this is where we step into that place of authentic aligned service, is that because you've let go of the old, because you've fully claimed yourself in the new, and you've claimed your gifts and you've remembered with clarity who you are, who you're here to be, what really matters to you, whether it's like, this is the country I want to live with, this is the person I want to be with, this is the work that I want to be doing, this is how I want to be taking care of my health, and this is how I want to show up. The next step is you want to give it to people, because we are human beings in our nature. We are generous beings. We are one of, the needs of the spirit, our growth and contribution. We want to contribute. It's who we are in our nature. And part of what I believe, for us to really be in our fullest expression of success and fulfillment in our lifetime, we need to be in a space of giving our gifts and offering what we have inside to the world. And that doesn't mean you need to be rich or famous or, be well known or have thousands of clients. Like, I'm not talking about that. It's about how can we be more generous, more giving? How can we live in a community and create a better world for our children and our children's children? And when we start to perceive life from that lens, and we start to concentrate on offering our gifts to the world and be devotional with that, that's where growth comes. That's where this is where I believe like true growth and true service comes, when we are operating from that frequency and of giving our gifts to the world, to people, whether that could look like, you being an incredible mother. It could look like you being an entrepreneur who's solving really big problems for people. It could look like you showing up for your regular job and like giving it your all, and people are so touched and their lives are changed because of who you are and who you show up when you do the work that you do. And it looks like being the most healthy, vital, expressed version of yourself, so that every time you walk into a room, people notice you, they feel your energy, and you are that person that is lighting up and literally elevating the frequency of a room just by being authentically you. But in order for us to like get there, because a lot of people and I see a lot of shaming, and I've done this as well, but I feel grief right now. I feel sad. I don't feel like can vibrantly walk into a room and be like the happiest person there. And that's not what I'm saying. Because the highest possible frequency you can be vibrating in is your authentic self. It's your authenticity. So if you're in the process, similar to me right now, where you are diving through, you're processing a lot of grief. For example, I'm in that space right now. There's a lot of grief that's moving through me in this current stage of my life, that me resisting it and me blocking it, me pretending like I have happy thoughts when I don't feel those thoughts. That's me being out of alignment with myself, and that's me being inauthentic. But when I align to my grief and I welcome it, it's here. Here I am. Like, look at me. I'm here. I'm in it. I'm going through it right now. And to be in it, to accept it, and to be with it, it allows it to move. And when it moves, you get lighter. The density starts to shift. And so that's what I mean by authenticity. And what's really important to share here is that we need to plunge into the depths of our darkness and our biggest fears and feeling completely defeated and having that like I'm good for nothing feeling. Like we need to get in there in a non-judgmental, like I'm gonna like just wade through the wave in the pulse of the womb. And inside of our darkest parts are actually our most precious jewels and gifts. This is where most people are afraid to go. This is where your unique gift is. And when you tap into that gift, then the next step is you got to go out and give it. And in the hero's journey, it's really funny because it talks about the refusal of the return, where it's like first you're resisting the calling from spirit. And then when you've gone through this whole journey and you've gone through the depths of yourself, reclaimed your gifts, and now you're like, okay, I have all these gifts and I have all this perspective, like higher perspective on who I am and what I want to give and what I want to do. There's this resistance that comes in that's like, wait, but I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go back to the thing I was, this is the classic like person who spends a year on top of a mountain meditating as a monk. And then they're like, I don't want to go back to society. No, thank you. I'd rather just be here in my peace all day meditating. Like, what am I going to go back to these people for? I don't want to deal with everyday modern day crap. And some people are destined, that's their soul destiny, is to just stay in the monastery and spread their light in that way. But a lot of us, especially light workers out there, we got to go back to the regular material world, I say like bucket, God, carry wood, shovel wood, carry water. Oh man, I always forget this quote, and it's an amazing quote, and I don't know why I selectively forget it every time I want to say it. But hold on, I'm gonna look it up because I have it written down. It's I'm gonna Google it. I'm sorry. Carry water. It's something about buckets and water. Shovel wood. Sorry guys. I'll be back. Chop wood, carry water. Well, yeah, it's a Zen quote. It says, "Before you enlighten, chop wood, carry water. After you enlighten, chop wood, carry water." And it's all about, even when we come into these higher and higher states of enlightenment and consciousness and inner knowing and connection to spirit, to the divine, we need to remember that we're human beings and we're of this earth, right? And so when we have these gifts, many of us will be called to be like, okay, you had this awakening process. Now you got to go back and give it to the world. Like, share your gifts. Going back to that metaphor of the monk, it's like, okay, it's there's actually a really beautiful, I think it's called The Diamond Cutter, this book I read about this man who used to be a monk, and then he went back to New York City and he started he went back into the diamond business, but like an ethical, this book is beautiful. He talks about business from a monk's perspective. He went back into doing business in the diamond industry, but he brought with him all his wisdom and all his lessons from being a monk. So it's like that, we can feel really, just as we were afraid to break through, once we've broken through, we might be afraid to go back and share what it is that we know. But we do need to go and make a difference and offer our gifts. That's part of the hero's journey. And to remember that no matter where we go, we take it all with us. So again, it's like, okay, I might be going 3 months off, but I'm going to come back. And when I come back, I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to have a set of gifts, and I will be taking everything I've learned with me. Just like today, when I'm sharing all of this with you, it comes from this database of me for years and years and years, learning how this cycle works and being able to articulate it so that hopefully it can help someone who's listening with your journey, right? So just that remembrance of carrying the gifts within, carrying the magic within, and that we become, it's like similar to a saint who walks into a space, and because that saint holds such high levels of frequency, that saint makes everything around him or her holy. Just like us, right? We bring with us our gifts. We might not be saints, but we bring with us our light. So, before the journey, the hero's journey, maybe our responsibilities felt heavy and boring, but now we can do them with a sense of awe and gratitude for being alive in the moment. So that's really that's the journey. That's the hero's journey. And the medicine wheel breaks it down into 4 archetypes. And I won't go too deep into this one today. Maybe this is another episode for another time. But the first archetype is the one of the South. So that first stage of and the animal is the serpent, and it's all about shedding our skin and not stopping, just letting our skin go and surrendering. Like letting go of our past is like that image of the serpent, like literally crawling out of its own skin as it begins to realize that the past has got to go. And then in the next spoke of the wheel is the west direction, because we're looking at the four directions: the north, the east, the south, and the west. And it's the west, which is symbolized by the jaguar, the animal of the jaguar. And this spoke of the wheel is all around surrendering everything you ever knew and facing our deepest shadows and our fears and everything that feels so freaking terrifying, going into the underworld and looking at it and dropping all the way beyond into the heart of the womb, into the womb of the Great Mother. And then once you go through that descent in the underworld, you come back up into the north, which is symbolized by the hummingbird. And it's all about feeling your wholeness and your completion and remembering the sweetness of life, right? Just as the hummingbird, it's the animal with the biggest heart compared to its body. And just as it just basically is constantly, it never stops. It's constantly going, sipping the sweet nectar of flowers, that it's all about, like stepping into that sweetness of life. But it's not fully complete until we step into the west, which, is where the sun rises, and symbolized by the archetype of the eagle, which is about us taking our gifts and sharing it with others far and wide. It's about having that higher perspective where you can see above, you can see below, and you can see everything that's actually happening and the bigger picture of life, the bigger picture of why we're here doing what we do, right? So the hero's journey I've given to you in a couple ways. The spiritual mechanics is we are going through these journeys. We're going through many of them over a lifetime. And the medicine wheel is a great map of like, okay, the South, shedding of the skin, the West, by, the jaguar, who is archetypally in the Mayan traditions is the one that would go into the underworld at sunset and fight all the demons and come back victorious when sun rose. So really stepping into that and then understanding that we then move into our wholeness, but it's not really complete until we choose to give it to others and be of service, right? And be in community and come back into the world with everything we've known and everything we've learned. So that's the hero's journey. And to really, drive it home, and to kind of like complete this thought is that I used to, I've been teaching the hero's journey for years now. Especially I have my School of Story course. I teach how to do the hero's journey and how to use the hero's journey to create your brand story, so you can really grow and shape your personal brand. But the biggest thing that really landed for me recently when it comes to the hero's journey is that when I ask the question, like, but what is it really? Okay, I get it. I'm going through these cycles and I'm spiraling upwards and life is getting better and better and I'm evolving more and more and I'm becoming more and more sophisticated at being able to navigate these really difficult cycles, and I'm doing it more gracefully and faster and better. And ... And what I realized is that the real act of heroism is transcending from me to we. And that's really where I find myself in this stage of my life. That's everything in my life is pointing me to that. As I am preparing myself to, be a mother one day, hopefully in the next few years, as my consciousness shifts to continue to ask the question, how can my existence be of more contribution to the planet? How can it be more in service? How can it be less of me and more of God's source universe, that divine intelligence flowing through me? How can I be more in collaboration with life? And as I ask those bigger questions, I'm realizing that I've gone through many stages of hero's journey, but to me, at least, the point of the biggest hero's journey of all is walking that bridge, across that bridge where we transcend and overcome our own little me problems, like the selfishness of like, oh, I have these needs and this is what I want from my life, and find our gifts and have the courage to offer them to the world. Because let me tell you, I've been offering my gifts to the world for 8 years. And I think, actually, I feel I'm speaking this in real time out loud. So this is as a surprise to me as it is to you, that this calling from spirit in the past year and a half has been like, hey, you've got more gifts and you're scared to offer them. And it's true. I know there's more in me that I crave, I yearn to give, that I'm here to give. If we're looking at the timeline of my highest possible soul destiny, I know that I have been operating at a fraction of what the gifts that I actually want to share with the world. And that's okay, because I don't know why I've been operating at a fraction. Maybe it's because I've needed to become the woman that I needed to be in order for me to fully handle and hold everything that wants to come through when I am operating at higher levels of giving my gifts, right? So there's no judgment on that. And I know that to be true, that I've been holding back. I've been holding back when it comes to sharing my gifts. And part of my journey now is finding the courage to offer them to the world my way. Not the way that so-and-so, business expert says it should be. Not the way that the industry is doing because this is what's trending right now. Not the way that even my mentors think that it should be done, but the way that I, Celine, as a soul embodied as Celine DaCosta, intuitively understand needs to be done. And because what I know to be true, and I've known this to be true, and just keep getting awakened to deeper and deeper levels of this being true, is that our purpose transcends us as individuals. It just does. And it's not about me. It's bigger than that. And so on a spiritual level, I feel that me taking this sabbatical is choosing that. Is me choosing, even though I don't know, even though I'm scared, even though I have no idea, is me choosing my soul and her guidance and surrendering to life. And so what am I doing next? Now I'm going to give you the punchline. I'm going to go live on a farm. I'm going to go to live in a permaculture community in Colombia, which is one of my most favorite countries on the planet. I have such a deep soul connection with that land. I'm going to go there and I'm going to delete all of my social media apps. And I am going to exist and work on the earth and put my fingers in the freaking dirt and just be in nature and commune with nature and integrate the massive amounts of personal work I've been doing, the massive amounts of subconscious reprogramming that I've been doing on myself that has had me shifting at quantum levels to the point that I love how much my life is documented because I don't even look the same anymore. And no, I have not had any work done for anyone who was going to ask that question. I literally have a different face. And I know that's because of the shifts that I've made in my inner being. And so I feel so divinely guided to just go in nature and exist and just be and see what wants to rebirth through me when I give myself the gift of being true to myself 100% all the way and not worrying about needing to serve others and not worrying about needing to check an email or respond to a thing or check an Instagram message and just letting all of that go and just giving myself the peace of stillness, of quiet, of just being in that 0 point, in that heart of the womb of the Great Mother. So that's what I'm doing, or being, rather. And here's what's really, really cool about this. I'm having a really proud moment. You're listening to the podcast, so you know what I'm going to be doing and you know when. But if you look at me online, you're still going to see me. Emails are still going to go out. Social media content is still going to go out because I have built the infrastructure to hold this. And I'm so proud of me. My podcast is pre-recorded for the next 4 months. Everything is done. It's ready to go on social media. I have built this incredible, very structured content bank where my team can pull from pre-approved writing that is me. It's things that I've said, things I've written, and they can pull from that. And post for me. They have assets for my digital courses, my self-led programs that they can go ahead and sell while I'm gone. They're fully empowered to be able to run the business without me, which is so cool because I worked really, really hard to get to this point where I could be in this position where I could just not only take time off and have made the right investments and have made the right decisions financially, which is all the work I've done around my money story, to be able to be in this position to take this time off. But also I did a ton of work around my leadership. I rewrote my story around leadership. I rewrote my story around my team and having a dream team instead of in the past where I feel like I couldn't trust the people that I used to work with. I trust my team. I have a solid amount, people working for me. I've built really solid back-end systems. I've invested a lot of time, money, energy to build an infrastructure of a business that can grow and scale without me. And even though there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of what is it that I want to scale? Do I even want to scale? These are all the questions that I don't know yet. Do I want to keep it small? Do I want to scale? I now have an option to know that I can be gone and business can run without me. So that feels really good. Feels really, really good. But yeah, if you see me on the IG in the next 3 months, that would be my wonderful team posting the things. And know that you can connect with me. You can actually DM me, connect on Instagram for more options on how you connect. Know that once I get back, I actually don't know at this point of this recording if I am coming back to social media. I'm going to totally feel it out, see how it feels to be off of it. But I will definitely be in my email. So make sure you sign up for my email list at celinedacosta.com/newsletter if you want to stay in contact and also to hear the updates about what comes out of the sabbatical, right? And definitely follow the podcast as well, which if you're on my email list, you're going to get notifications for the podcast. But that's the jam. That's the thing, guys. So, yeah, crazy times. So that's my message, y'all. I'm going on sabbatical. It's one of the scariest decisions I've made in the past couple years. And it feels, now that I'm on the other side of making that decision, it feels so good. It feels so right. I have no idea what's going to come out of me. I have no idea what's going to come out of my body of work. I don't know who I'm going to emerge, when I'll emerge, how I'll emerge, like all the things, question mark, question mark, question mark. And you know what? Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better at saying yes to life. And I'm getting better and better at surrendering and trusting and having deep faith that I am so loved and so divinely guided and so protected that I can't fuck this up. So long, actually, caveat, so long as I am listening to my soul and I'm deeply listening to that inner wisdom, that guidance that has never led me astray, I can only walk on my path of heart when I am operating from that compass, but that requires me to operate from that compass. So that is what this great reset is all about. Getting back to my compass. So there we go. There we go, friends. So those of you who want to continue, if you've been moved by this, let me know. And, I say this facetiously, but screenshot this episode. Let me know. My team will share your feedback with me. And I will be taking a look into, all these things when I get back. And not only that, but there's a couple of invitations that I have for you. The first one is that those of you who are like, oh, soul alignment, that sounds really good. How do I do that? I actually, before I leave, which is in a couple of days, I have recorded my soul alignment meditation, which is a meditation that I use every single day to get back into alignment with my soul, to get back into my inner wisdom. And that is completely free to you. That is a freebie that I'm going to gift to you. So make sure you grab it in the show notes. Or you can go, just go into the show notes and it's going to be, it's there on my website for you for free. For those of you who are really interested in learning more about the hero's journey and how to apply it specifically to creating your personal brand and creating a really compelling brand story for your business, I highly recommend my self-led course, which is School of Story. It's an amazing program that walks you through the hero's journey through more of a business lens. This was the one I shared with you as more of a spiritual lens, but more of a business lens of how can you use your hero's journey to just create a really compelling story of your brand. So that's thing number 2. And thing number 3 is for those of you who are interested in working privately with me, obviously not on my sabbatical. However, we have, my team has started a waitlist. And when I get back in February, there's already a waitlist going. So if you're interested in long-term private coaching with me, doing an in-person VIP day with me, or a deep dive intensive, then also go into the link in my bio and you can apply to get for a call with me when I get back. All right. So everything else, it's all in the bio. Let me know what you think about this episode, and I really hope it was of service, and I will see you next time. Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning in to today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celine DaCosta or visiting my website at CelineDaCosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.